group. It's made up of people from my neighborhood who are homeless, living in hotels, or living in social housing. That's the criteria to be in our group. But we also have another group called the Citywide Housing Coalition and the Raise the Rates Coalition, which are made up of people from all over the city. We go to their meetings, they don't necessarily come to ours. That's our way to kind of build in some power for people in the neighborhood, and have a space that's their own to plan in. When Concord Pacific put their application forward for their site at 58 West Hastings, we did stall it technically on a technicality for how many months? 3 or 4 months. There was a big eruption. So we stalled it with a technicality, and then we went into organization mode. We had a open community meeting on the site. We had big boards up above the fence so people could see the questions, and they wrote up, what would they like to see on this site. We took that to the planners, we rolled them out on the tables. Look at what people are saying that could be on this site instead of $500,000 condos. And then what else did we do? And then we had the march.
People are always saying, oh, the market will take care of social housing. Well, the market doesn't.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. And so either we are a society that is compassionate and building in a way that reflects that, or we let the market do it. And I think we are at a place where people are beginning to understand, because the market is beginning to undermine the middle class American dream values as well, right? It's not just about the bottom layer. And so I think there is this sort of moment that we come to. And I see it in developments in this neighborhood as well. So they worked really hard, and there was this huge development at Night and Kingsway that they were also involved in. It's very, very tall. It's 12 stories, and it's an empty lot. They were quite involved in that as well. And there was a lot of give and take over that development. And it's interesting because what they did was create 2 new zoning types, 2 new ways of building in the city. And interestingly, and I think this is fascinating, is that one of them was laneway housing, and the other one was denser lots. So you could bring together 2 or 3 lots, and where there was normally 2 or 3 houses, you could put 7 or 8 houses in a more dense, but sort of neighborhood. So the cars, parking was downgraded, all of these things. So these 2 types of development were really researched by this group. These new zones were developed. They thought about row houses and townhouses, sort of having high streets where there was lots of commercial activity, and then a buffer of row houses, and then into this sort of gentle density. And I'm only using that because that's how it sort of got picked up in the eco-density charter and sort of. So the city works with this group of people. They come up with this. There's this huge development that goes on in their neighborhood. There's give and take. The community agrees that they can go from 9 stories to 12 stories as long as there's money developed back into the community. The community is developing it. They're the ones sort of at the table, really directing the way in which it goes. It's very interesting. Then it's sort of taking a plot on Norquay Village. And Norquay Village goes, what? We don't want this. Where did this come from? And it's sort of like, you get a good idea and you run with it. And really the good idea was bringing people together and letting them decide how they were going to make the housing in their neighborhood work. Because I don't expect that model to work in Dunbar, and I don't expect it to work down here. I expect Dunbar to figure out what will work for them, and I expect downtown and south to figure out what will work for them. And the only way you do that is by bringing everybody to the table and saying, what do you want?
This is an engineered situation. It's a perfect example of a neoliberal development of deregulation and regulation of the housing market. When the feds downloaded or offloaded housing to the provinces in '95, and then the province of BC offloaded from themselves down to municipalities in 2002, they basically washed their hands in social housing, which means the discussions about who has access to housing and what housing plans look like is something that takes place among homeowners, amongst property owners, or amongst a class of people who can buy housing. And this is a problem. Like, these aren't arbitrary divisions, or like in 2002, when the last civic election happened, sorry. I got too many things running through my head. There was a pro-development party, which was called, the NPA. And there was a so-called anti-development party, or non-developer party, not an anti-development party, but a non-developer party called COPE. They were both running for City Hall. And there was a sort of a flip done that all of our attentions as people who live in the city were no longer on the feds or the provinces, the places where they can actually do something about social housing, but our attention was turned to little demands around the cities. And COPE got elected off of the massive push that happened around the social housing movement in Vancouver at that time. And of course they did not, because they can't do anything. Because the whole thing is a straw dog, the whole thing is a setup. It's a scam. And they've effectively diverted us. And so we end up talking about how we can maneuver our existence within markets. The markets themselves are not going to accommodate us ever. The markets are the enemy of people who live in cities. The markets have to be like, these buildings that stand empty for real estate speculators, this is a problem. These buildings should be expropriated. But we're not even in a position of talking about that. We're in a position of talking about how we can get the cities to pass regulations. We need to be making demands of the senior officials in government to put money back into the housing market so that people can live a decent, dignified existence and talk about how they can create their spaces they live in. I don't give a shit what Congress looks like. Those people can build whatever the fuck they want.